It's a Thursday. You good? You good over there? I know. I think this sounds better. I want to make sure that the audience can hear us clearly.
Got it.
So I just wanted to crank those volumes up a little bit.
Put them up a little bit.
We good? I think we're good now, right?
Yeah.
All right. It's another edition of 2822 Sports Night here on the 2822 Now app. It's a lovely Thursday. A lot going on in the sports world as we're just days away from the start of the NFL divisional matchup. And before we, I want to dive into all four games, especially the two that are on our channel as well. We have the Bills and Broncos on Saturday, Bears, Rams on Sunday. But the other two games also, Patriots, Texans, Seattle, San Francisco. Four really, really awesome NFL games. And if Wildcard Weekend previewed anything for this divisional matchup, or this round, I should say, we're in store for a fun weekend. But also, the Eagles ultimately falling as well. And I know Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman had their press conference today, just their exit interviews. And, I'm not sure if you were able to touch on anything, they talked today. You did an interview yesterday.
Yes.
With our good friend Caden from the Philadelphia area to kind of wrap things up on this Eagles season. And we'll get to that interview with Caden in just a couple of minutes. But ultimately, the Eagles, we talked about it earlier this week, they fall early in the playoffs. They were expecting to make a run. They made a change right away, getting rid of Kevin Patullo. And if it wasn't for Mike Tomlin the same day, we would have probably touched more on Patullo. Probably. But I imagine you probably talked with Caden more about where the Eagles go from there at the offensive coordinator and also some of the weapons they have on offense.
Yeah, we talked a lot about where they go in terms of a coordinator. And I think he was pretty unanimous in saying they're probably going to go with a guy with play calling experience. And he listed a lot of guys with both play calling and head coaching experience, but better play callers than head coaches as well. One of the head coaches being fired in this cycle as well. But yeah, we talked a lot about that, what happened this year. Also, we talked a little bit about, could this be A.J. Brown's last year? And he had a really interesting answer to that, just because there's a lot of money tied up with him as well, so the compensation would have to be there, as well as the team probably taking on some money. But that was a real interesting conversation. But yeah, a lot about the offensive coordinator, a lot about what they're going to do in the offseason, and where this team had the most success in previous years was, as I mentioned, with Nick Sirianni being the vibes guy and having two veteran coordinators with that, having success with that more than an inexperienced OC and Vic Fangio. They were the two worst years they had in terms of 2023 and this year in 2025.
That whole offense is under contract for a few years now. I mean, this is, and I would add also that it has to be one of the, if not one of the sexiest coordinator job out there, just because of the weapons and the talent that is on that offense with Philadelphia, barring, A.J. Brown getting traded in the offseason. But I think Roseman was asked today about that, and he alluded to how talented of a player A.J. Brown is, but he also didn't give a no when it comes to trading him. But that's those guys are media trained. They know how to approach that type of stuff. All right, let's get to the interview now with to preview everything, or not preview, to look back on the Eagles season and what's ahead in this offseason with Ricky and our good friend Caden. Let's get to the interview now.
And now coming on to give us the latest with the Eagles drama. A new offensive coordinator could be coming into town. Penn Live Eagles beat reporter Caden Steele has the latest on what the Eagles are going to do going forward after a pretty dysfunctional year. Offensively, had a good half one week, a bad half another week, and they never really seemed to find their footing. But Caden, welcome on first of all. But what do you think happened with this Eagles offense and the change that proceeded to follow? What do you think were some of the main factors that factored into them not firing Mr. Kevin Patullo, but ultimately deciding to make a change at the offensive coordinator position?
Yeah, I think they had to make a change. It was apparent early on this year, and I don't think you saw enough growth at any point to even change your mind that Kevin Patullo was not ready for the position. He was a first-time play caller at any level. And Ricky, keep in mind, when I say any level, I mean high school or college or the NFL. It's a guy that's never called plays in his career. Obviously, he's been part of game planning, strategic stuff or situational football with Nick Sirianni, but he's never been in this position before, and I mean, he was swimming. I mean, he struggled. I don't think he ever really figured out how to be an effective play caller. I don't think he had a really good feel for it. He just did some weird stuff throughout the season, like running the ball against stacked boxes over and over again when he knows it's not going to work, running inside zone in between the tackles when it doesn't work, but just continuing to do it over and over again. The passing game was just out of whack again, and it wasn't really great last year either. So I think that's part of it is on the quarterback, but it's also part of Kevin Patullo's job to get the most out of Jalen Hurts, and he didn't. And overall, he just did a poor job. Was he set up to fail? I think so. I mean, it's a first-time coordinator in a high pressure situation with a team that's the defending Super Bowl champs. They got Super Bowl expectations. They have honestly coming into this year, and I still think they think it in their mind. They have dynasty expectations. They see a roster that I right now I don't know if it's as strong as they thought before the year, but they see a roster that they think can win multiple Super Bowls, and you have a coordinator that they felt like held him back, and he did hold him back a good bit. So now he's gone, and the Eagles are going to have to um, make a good hire. But just one last thought on Kevin Batolo. Um, I don't think it's just his fault. I mean, like I said, he wasn't good, but the Eagles' offensive line was really bad this year, especially on the interior. Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson, they struggled. And you have a first-time play caller that is working around things and he's trying to get things going. And like the one thing they could count on last year was the run game with Saquon Barkley. That's not working. Your quarterback's not playing particularly well consistently. AJ Brown's dropping passes and is frustrated and upset and just like there's a lot of drama. Like that's a tough situation to be in. So I don't think it's just Kevin Patullo's fault, but he's the easy one to get rid of. He's expendable and he didn't do a good job. So I mean, he doesn't really deserve to be back.
Yeah, and the Eagles obviously Super Bowl winners last year and really dominated on the back of that run game. Saquon Barkley winning Offensive Player of the Year. They controlled the clock and then they suffocated teams with that Vic Fangio-led defense that was arguably just as impressive, if not more impressive, in the second year or another year in that scheme. But what I've noticed, at least with Nick Sirianni-led teams, when he's had capable offensive coordinators or like veteran play callers, they've done particularly well. Shane Steichen won a Super Bowl there. Kellen Moore won a Super Bowl last year. Both of them ultimately had to move on after 1 year because of the success that offense had. But you look at the two in-between years that they've struggled. Brian Johnson, an in-house hire, didn't really live up to expectations. Teams floundered towards the back half of the year. And then this year as well with the offense, similar situation, but the offense was just inconsistent throughout the entirety of the year. So what could we look at or going forward, what type of play or what type of coach or what are people, I guess, we should be looking at in this Eagles job as they look for a capable offensive coordinator and the names that could be out there in this cycle?
Yeah, I'll start with what's been reported already, and I think there is legs, to these things. So Diane Rossini reported that at the top of the Eagles list is Brian Dable, the former Giants head coach, and former Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel as well. So let's break down those two guys. I think Mike McDaniel is particularly interesting, especially if you hear Ian Rappaport talking on Good Morning Football on Wednesday morning, talking about how the Eagles they're going to take a big swing, and I think Dable and McDaniel would both apply as a big swing. But the thing that got me is like he thinks they're going to do something a lot different than they've ever done from Nick Sirianni, and he used the word a clean break from like what Nick Sirianni does. Which when I think he says that he's referencing the type of offense that they run, the scheme. I think if that is true, and what Ian Rappaport is alluding to, that they're going to do something they've never done before. That fits Mike McDaniel. I mean, Mike McDaniel is completely different offensive scheme than Nick Sirianni. They're like on two different, planets, like in terms of like offensive mind, what they do. I mean, he'll come in and he'll ask Jalen to run a bunch of under center, and we'll see if Jalen is comfortable with that. He'll ask Jalen to throw over the middle of the field more. We'll see if Jalen's comfortable with that. There's been two knocks on Jalen to at least some level. Some people don't think he's comfortable in a center, that he's not comfortable throwing over the middle. There's debate about that. We really find that out under Mike McDaniel. He uses a lot of motion. He gets his guys favorable matchups. Um, the run game in Miami, even this year, in that winning streak they had before they really collapsed at the end. I mean, the run game is very unique. They use two running back sets. They run a bunch of outside zone. They use three tight ends. Like they make life difficult on defensive front. So I think Mike McDaniel is one of the best offensive minds in football. He would ask the Eagles to do something completely different in terms of like their approach that they haven't done under Nick Sirianni and they didn't do under Kellen Moore, not even Shane Steichen. It would look completely different and they would have to install a new offense for the most part in the offseason, and that would be a transition, but maybe that gets the most out of Jalen and this offensive talent. And look, Mike McDaniel wasn't a good head coach. I think he's a little quirky. Obviously, I don't know how well of a culture he built in Miami. I just feel like he's perfectly suited to be like the best offensive coordinator in the NFL. And I think the Eagles will be interested in him. Obviously, that's already been out there. Brian Dable obviously there's the connection with Jalen Hurts. He was the coach when Jalen Hurts got benched to Alabama, so you wonder what that dynamic would be like. But if there is a mutual respect there, if there's no hard feelings, he would obviously have some comfortability knowing what Jalen's strengths are, what his weaknesses are, and obviously Jalen's become better since his days at Alabama. But having that knowledge of Jalen, and if there is a decent relationship there, I think maybe he could be able to get the most out of him. And I think Jalen Hurts needs to get coached hard. I think he needs to work on some things if he wants to continue to progress and not kind of flatline. And I think right now, or at least this season, I think he flatlined a little bit. He even regressed in some things, and I think a lot of it had to do with the coaching. I think they need a coach that's going to come in, coach him hard, and Brian Dable might be able to do that. Brian Dable got the most out of Josh. I mean, honestly, turned Josh Allen into a much better quarterback, really hands-on in his development in Buffalo. 2022, he got a really good season out of Daniel Jones. We saw what happened the rest of the tenure in New York, where there was reports about how he was difficult to work with. He annihilated staff members, and ultimately it didn't work as a head coach, and his offenses weren't very good at the end. But the personnel wasn't very good either. So I think those two come to top of mind. And I'll throw a few more names out if you're okay with that, Ricky.
Yeah.
I think another one that would fit along the lines of something different, going back to what Ian Rappaport said, is Cliff Kingsbury, the former Commanders offensive coordinator. They parted ways after a 5-12 season this year, but last year, Cliff Kingsbury coached Jaden Daniels to one of the best rookie seasons in the NFL. His offenses, it seems like, are pretty relatively easy to play in. A lot of shotgun, a lot of pistol, which Jalen has done more of than being an under center quarterback in the NFL. So I think that would help. Jalen is something that I want to say more comfortable with. I mean, it depends on who you ask, but at least it's something he's done more. So that would be a natural fit. He does a lot of, creative elements as well. I mean, he runs a lot of motion. And he's considered a really well-respected offensive mind. He got the most out of Jaden Daniel. Kyler Murray had some really good seasons under Cliff Kingsbury when he was the head coach of the Cardinals. So I think Cliff Kingsbury is another name to potentially watch out for. I'll throw like two more names out there. Another one is Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator. I mean, he helped Lamar in 2023 be MVP, and obviously Lamar's a great player himself, but that offense was extremely fun in 2023, and Todd Monken had a big role with it. 2024, that offense was awesome as well. Really bad or really tough year this year, but Lamar was hurt for a large portion of the year. But I think Todd Monken, because of his experience as a play caller with the Ravens at the college level, with the Buccaneers, and the fact that he's a little older and he might not leave for a head coaching job in a year or two, I think that would be something that would intrigue the Eagles. Just generally finding a guy that it's not gonna just take the first opportunity and leave, I think should be something that the Eagles consider. And the last guy I'll throw on there, I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, is Nathan Shalacy. I think I probably
know the Rams passing game coordinator.
Rams passing game coordinator. The Eagles interviewed him in 2023 before he went to the Rams when he was an offensive coordinator at Iowa State. So he was in that same cycle. They interviewed Kellen Moore for and Cliff Kingsbury for it, and they ultimately went with Kellen Moore. But this is before he even got the Rams job. He worked with Matt Campbell, who played with Nick Sirianni at Mount Union. He's obviously a very sharp mind. He's already getting head coaching job interviews. And if if Nick Sirianni has a say in it, I mean, he might be comfortable with a guy that he knows worked with Matt Campbell, has that relationship with him already. And then going back to Ian Rappaport one more time, that would be different. I mean, that would be a McVay system. You wonder how much authority he'll have, how much of it would be him versus Nick, since he would be a first-time play caller. But that's another guy that would be interesting.
Yeah, the McVay Shanahan tree certainly taking prominence across the NFL. And yeah, you mentioned Shalacy. I can't pronounce it. Shalacy, I think, was interviewed with, I think, the Pittsburgh job as well. So that should be a name that's tossed around there. But yeah, most of those guys you mentioned, head coach experience, but ultimately better coordinators, probably suited better in that position. But the Mike McDaniel fit is interesting to me because obviously him and Vic Fangio do have a history dating back to Miami. And I know there was some alienation there and maybe some tension on that staff. So that would probably be a concern headed in. But if they can put things aside and run Mike McDaniel's offense, which has shown success in Miami, things could work out. But another thing I have is obviously the AJ Brown situation. What is going to happen there? Obviously, him and Nick Sirianni had a conversation on the sideline during that 49ers game. I know I don't think he had a press availability after that game either. I think it was reported he said goodbye to his teammates, coaches, and then quickly left out there. I mean, I guess this is the burning question. Is AJ Brown, I know there's been a lot of tension over the years and it's bubbled, but they won a Super Bowl and they seem to be able to put it aside. But is that tension going to come to a hedge this offseason or already have come to a hedge this season? And are things going to be repairable? And can they move past this and keep him on the roster with that cap hit he has?
Yeah, it's tough. The cap number will make it difficult. I mean, it's an astronomical cap number. He makes a ton of money. I think it would be like, I think I saw somewhere like the fourth highest for like a single cap hit in a seat. Like, so the money would be detrimental to get rid of AJ Brown. So, and I see a lot of people saying it's not possible and that they don't think it will happen, or just at least on social media, the AJ is not going anywhere because of the cap number. And while that makes logical sense, and I agree with you, that it's going to take a lot to trade him. It will be a challenge. They're going to have to work around the money. They're going to have to get good compensation back to make it even worth doing. So, like, is it a guarantee that AJ Brown's going to get traded? No. Like, there's still a chance I think he's back next year. But my gut tells me that the Eagles and AJ Brown are going to part ways. This is not me reporting or saying, someone's told me this, but just reading the wall. He hadn't talked to reporters in over a month. I was after that Chargers game where he also had multiple drops. There's been tension for multiple years now with him and Jalen Hurts. At least, last year it was evident when Brandon Graham brought it up when saying that their relationship is not as close as it used to be. They used to be best friends. I'm not sure if it's as bad of a place as it was 2 years ago, but it goes beyond just whether Jalen and AJ are as close or on the same page in terms of just being on the same team anymore. I think it also goes beyond that. AJ's just it's a tough city to play in. I think that's a part of it, and also just he wants to put up good numbers, and this hasn't been a good passing offense in a couple of years. And you just seen the frustration in the post game comments and the body language, and I just part of me thinks that like it's coming to like and in here, I think both sides are going to look at this as an opportunity to move on. Maybe it can be repaired, but I think if the Eagles, I'll best put it this way: I'm not guaranteed that AJ is going to get traded. It's really, I still think in the up in the air. I'm leaning towards the Eagles will find a fresh start. But really, the reporting last year, right, was I think Diane Rossini reported this at some point that basically teams called the Eagles in the offseason about AJ Brown, and Howie Roseman hung up the phone. I think this time Howie Roseman's going to stay on the phone and listen to the offer, listen to how they can make the money work. Because at the end of the day, if you want to take away the antics or maybe AJ Brown being a distraction, whatever you want to say, ultimately, and he's a 28-year-old wide receiver who's still very good, but I think we've seen the best of AJ Brown. And if you can get really good assets, let's say a first round pick, you can get someone to take some of the money. you can get a fresh start for both sides. I think that would potentially be ideal. That's a lot of what ifs, and that's not going to be easy, but I think there's a decent chance that AJ Brown's not back on the Eagles next year.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be something to watch out for, and we'll keep an eye as well on the Eagles' offensive coordinator interviews as always. But Caden, thank you again for joining us, and we'll keep an eye on all the AJ Brown moves, all the AJ Brown rumors, all of these free agent decisions that the Eagles are going to have to make, and what the team could look like going forward into 2026. And now coming on to give us the latest with the Eagles.
Returning here to 28-22 Sports Night here on the 28-22 Now app. The 49ers advance past the Eagles, obviously, and they will take on the top seed Seattle Seahawks, where when we're replaying that interview with Cade and Ricky, which was fantastic, like you said, such a knowledgeable person to always bring onto the show and talk everything Birds. We saw that Sam Darnold has been added to the injury report for the Seahawks. Questionable with an oblique injury. If he's unable to go, Mr. Drew Lock would step in and become the starting quarterback for the Seahawks. Again, they're still, 2 days? Yes, they're the Saturday night game.
Yes, 2 days.
Two and a half days to get ready. If you're a Seahawks fan, which we know some, if you're a Vikings fan, which we know some, if you're a Panthers fan, a Jets fan, you are familiar, maybe not the Jets or Panthers necessarily, but more the Vikings, you're familiar with Sam Darnold weeks through 1 to 17 and weeks 18 and playoffs. What happens to this guy? And I wouldn't want to see that happen because I think the Seahawks could be a lot of fun to watch in the postseason with how dominant that defense is. I wouldn't say they're on the Legion of Boom standards, but they've been having a heck of a year. And if they can't have their starting quarterback against this Niners defense that is also very injured as well, but they've, hung around with teams and have been able to, give credit to Robert Saleh. He's still done a really good job with all the pieces he's lost throughout the season. To keep that team afloat, it definitely plays a major impact in that game.
Yeah, it definitely does. And again, we don't know the extent of that oblique injury. Obviously, we just saw it popped up on the injury report. You have to assume. It's do or die. Coming off a week off. We don't even know how he hurt. We're
asking the same question. He was on a bye week.
Yeah, I guess would have had to have happened during practice or one of the team lifts or something like that. But we know Sam Darnold, particularly last year with Minnesota. Great weeks 1 through 17, and then collapsed that last week against Detroit. That caused them to, I believe, stay in the wild card last year and ultimately got shellacked by the Rams going to LA. And that Rams defense was all over him. They couldn't really do much, but I look at this Minnesota's offensive line last year also was a huge problem. Mm-hmm. They gave up a lot of pressure, a lot of sacks over the last 2 weeks, and Jared Verse and Byron Young, they were all over Sam Darnold in that playoff game last year. But you look at this 49ers team. They're banged up. Their pass rush is not great. Bryce Huff, I believe, is probably the biggest weapon on that line. I know Alfred Collins is playing some good football, but not really known as a pass rusher, more known as just a physical big body who can mix it up in the run game. And And also, this 49ers run defense just isn't great either. The Eagles did have some success there in the last game, despite what the score says. They actually ran the ball pretty well. I think first play of the game, Saquon Barkley had a 29-yard run to start things off and really catapult that first drive that resulted in a touchdown. But you look at this Eagles team. Or you look at this Seahawks team as well. They're playing really good football. I think they've done a better job of protecting Sam Darnold. I think Clint Kubiak is a heck of an offensive mind as well. And no one has really been able to this year shut down JSN. I know the last time these two teams faced off, it was not pretty. I think it was
13-3, yeah.
13-3, and these divisional games are not fun. I always say, you don't want to play a team 3 times in a year because you really don't know what's going to happen. You don't. And not that Brock Purdy was brilliant by any stretch of the imagination last week. I think he threw 2 interceptions, one of them to Quinyon Mitchell, and what was a really bad read. I think he had a Jawan Jennings coming across the middle on that play, but completely misread that play, and Quinyon Mitchell ended up making a play on that ball. But this is a San Francisco 49ers team that has been able to gut out a lot of wins in the latter half of the year, despite them being on their now, I think they said it during the broadcast, their 5th, 6th, and 7th linebackers. They brought back Eric Kendricks, who's a former 49er, familiar with this scheme. But they've just been really, really banged up. They've been counting on guys, practice squad guys who've made a living throughout their career on special teams. It has just been a war of attrition, and you have to give Robert Saleh a whole lot of credit for what he has been able to do with this game. But looking at this offense with the Seahawks, it's a whole different beast. It's not the Eagles' offense that has struggled the entirety of the year. Mike McDonald and Clint Kubiak have done a pretty good job. They have the run games going over recent weeks between Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. They've been one of the better 1-2 punches across the NFL. Of course, you have JSN. Rashid Shaheed has been a really valuable addition, both in special teams and as a wide receiver number 2 in his ability to push the ball down the field.
Wide receiver, running back, whatever you want to play him at, he can do it.
And their offensive line has been able to mix it up, but this team obviously has been this season defined by their defense. Their 3 guys up front are just houses. Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy. Who am I missing? I'm missing one guy, and I like this guy. He's a heck of a run stuffer. I don't know, but there's another big house up there as well for that Seahawks defense. And then, of course, you have Ernest Jones, who was a former Rams linebacker, then went to, I believe it was Tennessee, and then he found his way back to the NFC West and is now playing for the Seattle Seahawks, doing a great job there. And then that secondary, Nicky Manwari, the safety, who's going to be a really good player in this league. I think it's going to be low scoring, but I think the Seahawks do have a clear advantage in this game.
Well, the 2 matchups this regular season have been low scoring. 13-3, like you said, in week 18, and then back in week 1, there was that 17-13 matchup that started the season. I think the one consistent factor, which you were touching on all the studs they have on that Seattle defense and that defensive unit, a couple of, as stellar of a season that Christian McCaffrey's had, 2 of his not as great games have both come against San Francisco, where they've really limited him in the running game. He's had his targets, he's had his receptions, he's always going to have those little dump-off passes, but I don't think he has scored at all this season in both those games against Seattle. And you look at now the 49ers, and yes, he had a monster game against Philly, scoring twice, and in that fourth quarter, it felt like they just kept feeding him the ball over and over and over again, and the Eagles had no answer for that. But again, as good as the Eagles defense was, this Seahawks defense, I think, is a step better. And they've shown it twice this year that they can slow down McCaffrey, and now without George Kittle in the picture, that changes things drastically, because San Francisco, they've done a good job of spreading it out, to their different wideouts. It's a different guy having a big game for them, but who's going to be, they don't have that number 1 wide receiver that they can rely on. We don't know if it's going to be Demarcus Robinson. Is it going to be Jawan Jennings? Yeah. Is it going to be Jake Tonges? Who's going to step up in the wideout, picture there? if McCaffrey can't get going, if that defensive line that you were talking about for Seattle is so dominant where they can't get McCaffrey in a groove. So I'm curious to see how Kyle Shanahan decides to approach this game, knowing what happened in Week 18, only able to score 3 points. And then you think back to Week 1, where, yes, they beat Seattle, but it was only 17-13. I think the Seattle offense has drastically improved throughout the season, where they are probably much different now than they were back in early September.
Yeah, and the name I was forgetting was Jaron Reed. Yeah, and also the season DeMarcus Lawrence is having as well. I think he was named a Pro Bowler, All-Pro. One of the two.
The old fella.
Yeah, the old fella. He's sort of getting it done after leaving Dallas and sort of resurrecting his career. And and that's, again, all the credit to Mike McDonald and what he's been able to do with that defense. But yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup. In that Week 1 matchup, I think Seattle controlled that game, but Sam Darnold had some costly turnovers in the red zone. I think there was one late in that game, and there was one earlier in that game. I actually think that game ended on a Nick Bosa strip sack, if I'm not mistaken.
It feels like Week 1 feels like an eternity ago.
I think Seattle was in that game to win it, but Sam Darnold had some costly turnovers in that game late that really, really hurt them. But yeah, and placing a division opponent, again, they're always entertaining, and it's going to be another chapter to this. This is one of the more storied recent rivalries in the NFL. They've had some fun playoff memories. You think back between these two with the Legion of Boom and then Colin Kaepernick's 49ers, that championship game ironically in Seattle. So it's going to be a fun game between these two. But yeah, I mean, if you're the 49ers, in particular, Christian McCaffrey has struggled in both of these outings. The last one, Trent Williams didn't play, and you could tell the difference. They could not move the ball running or passing. They were getting beat rushing the passer. They couldn't move the ball in the run game. They couldn't move these big Seattle's defensive linemen, which I think are going to be a huge factor in this game. But yeah, Seattle's, I think, theme all year, they were hoping Ricky Pearsall was going to be that guy to take that next step, but he's been banged up, and they've really, offensively, that's probably been their biggest worry there is Kittle's missed time. Jawan Jennings has been playing banged up towards the latter half, middle of the year, but I think he's healthy now. Last game, it was sort of Demarcus Robinson who got this offense going, had a huge play early, had an almost 60-yard catch. But yeah, Seattle's really counting on a wide receiver by committee. They don't have a number one guy, and they really haven't had a number one guy since when Deebo Samuel was still in his prime. And he obviously slowed down. He slowed down a little bit getting traded to Washington, but it's going to be really tough. And I think it's going to be a lot of division games. They're low scoring. They're physical. They're going to come down to the last possession. I can't see this game being a blowout, despite how undermanned the 49ers might be without Kittle, without Warner, who isn't going to be activated for this game. I see this game as really, really low scoring, a lot of defense, and similar to the first two matchups, maybe the first team to hit 20 wins.
I'm fascinated to see what the environment's going to be like in Seattle, because you think back to those. I mean, they're the 12th man for a reason, but you think back to those mid 2010 years and just how much of a factor the fans played in that building. And, for them to finally have a playoff game in the type of season they're having. I mean, you think back to early December, they probably thought they were going to be a 6 or a 5 seed at that rate. Few things happen, teams win, teams lose, and all of a sudden they're the top seed in the NFC. It's just how wacky the NFC West has been. I think every
3 out of the 4 teams in that division are still left.
They're still left, and they all had an opportunity to grab the 1 seed going into Week 17, Week 18. So it was pretty ridiculous how the season has transpired for them. I know we got to get a break in real quick, Ricky. Afterwards, I want to definitely touch on the other NFC game, the wrap-up divisional weekend between the Bears and the Los Angeles Rams, because we have an NFC matchup where the teams have already played twice this year, and on the other hand, we've got a matchup where they haven't played, and numbers would not favor the favorites to win the Super Bowl. I guess the second favorites, and some videos I've come across of what the weather's looking like in Chicago now. So those boys from sunny LA might not enjoy the snow and the wind and the cold, and definitely make an impact. But we'll take a break in right now, and we'll get to that Bears-Rams game right after this. The other game in the NFC bracket with the Bears and Rams, part of me wants to see Chicago. This is what all I've been telling people is football is fun when Chicago is good. When the Bears have a good team, it just feels like things are right in the NFL. But on the other hand, what a storybook ending it would possibly be for Matthew Stafford if he could lead this Rams team to another Super Bowl. And you think back to all the years he was struggling in Detroit. He goes to LA, he wins them a title over the Bengals, and then, having maybe his best season of his career. What is he, 36 now? Is he around mid to late 30s?
Yeah.
To bring home another banner to Los Angeles, I think would be pretty cool. But, what Chicago did against Green Bay, and I was texting one of my buddies during the halftime, and he was like, the Bears will come back. Like, the NFL will not allow Green Bay to run this team off the field by 40. And part of me was like, I agree with you, but also at the same time, they just weren't doing anything on offense. And Green Bay, this is the best they've looked all season. I mean, Christian Watson was getting involved, Romeo Doubs. It was a strong collective effort. And then they just fell apart in the second half, and the Bears were able to come back. And, what I've loved about Caleb Williams this season is not only, you can see the arm strength, you can see the accuracy with his throws and how he's taken that next step on the field, but also the maturity level and also just how much he cares about the game. I mean, you see him pissed off on the sidelines after something's not going right. I want to see, I know everyone's critiquing, he's pissed at his teammates. They drop these passes, and Caleb Williams is upset. But it seems like he wants to win. And I think that competitive aspect of Caleb is, what was, one of the big factors that he went number 1 overall out of USC in 2024. And, seeing that, him take this step in the second year where, his team's the 2 seed. And you think back to, Chicago's never really been good in our lifetimes. We've never really seen the Bears relevant. Maybe a couple seasons, couple Mitch Trubisky years, maybe a couple Jay Cutler years when we were younger. But to see the Bears relevant and to see a quarterback becoming the franchise quarterback that many expected, I think is really cool. And also the fact that we might just get another blizzard-like game in Chicago where the Rams last year, we saw them in this state almost come into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles in a snow game. They were, in the red zone with a chance to win it. To now go to Chicago and hopefully do the same thing. Should be, a great way to wrap up the divisional weekend. And I also think there's, I think we're going to have 3 fantastic games, and that's just going to be the icing on the cake for our weekend.
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit more polarized by Caleb Williams personally because I think he misses too many gimme throws. I think I still saw too many throws in that game. Like, how do you miss that? And then he makes 2 amazing plays.
He makes up for it.
I'm like, that's why he's so polarizing, because these off-platform throws he's so good at getting the ball over the defense. He's got the arm strength, and then again, credit to Ben Johnson. He's come in here and he's done a hell of a job. He's galvanized this locker room and he's gotten this team back to relevancy. And it really started with that opening press conference. He said, "I'm excited to beat Matt LaFleur." I think that was in his. I'm excited to beat Matt LaFleur twice.
I'm shocked he's not getting more Coach of the Year conversations. I feel like you're not hearing his name in that conversation very much.
Yeah, he should definitely be in that conversation, but I mean, the way that offense moves, the weapons that they have, and that's where they're going to have an advantage, because I think the weak point of this Rams defense, it's the secondary. It's the cornerbacks. Emmanuel Forbes has played better. Ahkello Witherspoon is solid, but DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and
Luther Burden
on the outside pose just such a threat to so many defense. And then, of course, Colston Loveland.
He's the second half of this season. He's been unbelievable.
Been on a tear. Him and Caleb Williams have developed great chemistry, and he was huge in orchestrating that comeback. And for Caleb Williams to go back to DJ Moore, I think dropped a big pass just a few plays earlier, and DJ Moore gets wide open right down the sidelines, puts it right in the bucket, and you know, you could argue Green Bay lost that game because of Brandon McManus, but this Chicago team has been great. And, you know, with Matt Stafford, he didn't have a great game last week. He struggled on the road, throwing a couple bad interceptions. But when it was time, they said they had complete faith in him. And I think this is going to be the complete opposite of last week's game. This is the complete opposite of the game we just talked about. This is going to be high scoring.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be a blizzard, but these teams are going to go right up and down the field.
To score.
And it's just going to be fun to watch McVay and Ben Johnson put up an offensive clinic against two defenses that are solid, but I don't think are certainly in that elite tier, but certainly going to be a heck of a game to cap off. And I think this could come down to last possession as a real back and forth type game.
And we didn't even talk about the running back rooms.
Yeah.
Both of these teams have unbelievable 1-2 punches in the backfield. The Bears with Swift and Monangai, the Rams, Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. And if the snow really plays that much of a factor where they have to rely on the running game.
Both teams can do that.
Yeah.
That's the scary part.
So we might, I like that. The complete opposite games in the NFC.
Opposite.
Over in the AFC, I'd be curious to know, and the two games, you know, the one on our channel on Saturday, Bills, Broncos, 6-1, and then the Texans and Patriots is the Sunday afternoon clash, 5-2. Who's more likely to pull off an upset in your eyes?
Oh, God.
Because I know you were very locked into what happened on Monday night with your team.
I get.
But Superman over there in Buffalo can go into any place, and it doesn't matter what weapons he has.
I know, but at some point, it just becomes too much. And they're down two more wide receivers. Khalil Shavers is out, season-ending injury. Gabe Davis is out, season-ending injury. You have Khalil Shakir. Brandon Cooks made some plays, and again, I like Brandon Cooks. He's so old, and they've struggled all year with not having vertical threats, and neither of those guys, to me, at this point in their career, are vertical threats. Khalil Shakir's 26, but he's never been a guy who's going to be a vertical threat. He's more of a short, mid-range guy, and then Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox have sort of been the seam busters that go right through, and the weakness of this Denver defense is the cornerback 2 with Riley Moss. Sorry to say.
Tell me about it.
But I don't think they have a wide receiver 2 that can consistently expose that. So if I'm going to pull off an upset, I'm probably picking Houston because I think Houston, the one advantage they have, I think they can rip apart this New England offensive line. You saw what they did. And Pittsburgh's, people are crapping on this Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line. They were one of the best units in the NFL, and they're still so young. They just ripped them apart. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter have their way. And Will Campbell is a rookie offensive tackle going up against...
He struggled last weekend against... The line struggled against the Chargers.
Exactly. And Tui Tuipulotu, I love him. They don't really have... Khalil Mack's aging. Bud Dupree's not what he once was. The one advantage they have, they can get to Drake May. And Drake May does have a fumbling issue. Whether fans want to admit it or not, I saw him get strip-sacked a lot against Pittsburgh. I saw him get strip-sacked a couple times last week. He doesn't do a great job at protecting the football. So if I'm picking an upset, and again, I saw how poorly C.J. Stroud looked. I get it. But
you wanted to see the Steelers in the divisional round.
I did.
C.J. Stroud wanted.
He looked like he did for a good majority of that football game. If I had to pick a team that was going to more likely get the upset, I would probably go Houston just because that defense is suffocating. Downhill.
I would love to know if you're a guy on that defense for the Texans, they know how good they are and they can alter a game. But man, if you're on the sideline and you're watching what your offense is doing, that's got to be frustrating as hell.
Yeah,
knowing that your offense just is not helping you. And I would say the same thing for the Steelers too.
Yeah.
The Steelers defense is probably thinking on their sideline like, man,
they didn't play
we are
great, but
it was a
it was
one-score game
yeah,
through the third quarter.
Yeah. It was a 10-6 in the fourth quarter with 10 minutes to go.
I mean, you've got to be thinking like, come on, man, get us a lead. That's got to be so frustrating. And I am fascinated by this because I can't see the way the Patriots offense has looked all season. I can't see them looking like they did against the Chargers again this week. It feels like they're gonna have their breakout moment. They struggled last week to get anything going. It's what's happened this year. Again, they might get completely shut down, which is fair because of who they're going to be going up against in Houston. But it's hard from what we've seen in the last 19 weeks to imagine that New England's offense is going to struggle the way they did last week again on Sunday afternoon. So that's where.
But that's a very good Chargers defense. Very good as
Chargers defense is very good. They throw a lot of weird looks at you.
A lot of too high. Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot of zone coverage. But yeah, I mean, Jesse Minter's getting head coach interviews for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. But then the Patriots defense looked really, really good.
They did.
So can they take advantage of, what's CJ Stroud going to look like is my question. Because he may not have Nico Collins on Sunday. I hope he's on the field. Because I love that. We've both admitted that we love that guy on the field. But he took a hard, his head hit the ground hard. Yeah. He didn't know where he was when he got up. So I'm fascinated by this game and whose defense. I think it's going to ultimately come down to whose offense. Usually it's which defense can get the last stop. I think it's whose offense can get that score to give you the lead, because then you rely on your defense just to get stops, which for both of these teams, very reliable defensive units.
Yeah. And the Texans live and die off turnovers. They're one of the best turnover units in the regular season. I think they were top 5. I think they were near the Steelers. I mean, they were among the tops in almost every category, so that's not really saying anything, but short field is going to play a huge role. I'm not sure if you can have as bad of a game as he had last week.
You are still just blown away by how poorly he played on Monday night.
He kept Pittsburgh in that game single-handedly. Like, they could have put them away right out of halftime. No, he threw a bad interception.
What do you have, 4 fumbles?
Yeah, but some of them were just between him and the center. He didn't know when the center was snapping. There was a miscommunication there as well. But, yeah, I think he had 4 fumbles, lost 2 of them. And I just can't see him having that bad of a game again.
And winning.
Yes.
If he does that again, I mean, you can only do that for so long.
It's going to be an interesting game. Again, I think that game's going to be low scoring as well, because I think both defenses are good. But I think if the Texans can run the ball the way they ran the ball last week, that helps as well. They ran for 160 against that Steelers defense.
Woody Marks was having a great
Woody Marks, I think that
day.
was his first 100-yard game, if I'm not mistaken.
Comes in the biggest moment, Ricky.
Yep. Yes, it does.
So, are we having 3 close, low-scoring ball games, or are we splitting these babies 2 and 2? Is this offense, this mile-high offense, coming alive and winning a shootout against this Buffalo team?
I don't think this is going to be a shoot. I don't know what this game is. Because I don't know what I've told you, I have been conflicted on Denver the entire year.
Yes, you
because I don't know what this offense is going to come out like. They have been in like 14 one-score games this year. You have to think it's going to be one score again. Yeah. And Jacksonville did a great job last week of shutting down James Cook. But as we said earlier in the week, Josh Allen really brought out that Superman
Wonder Boy, as some fans call them.
Wonder Boy, as one person's
one
father.
Fan in the New England area refers to Josh Allen as. They have to get off to a fast start. And when you look at what the Broncos have done this season, you worry about them coming off a bye week. Oh. A bye week, let alone week 18 going against the Chargers third stringers, Week 17 on Christmas going up against Chris Aludicon and the Chiefs.
Close game.
The last time they played a legit football team was Week 16 when Jacksonville ran them off the field. That's the last time the Broncos were in a competitive game.
And that defense got...
And they struggled. The defense as a whole has not been the defense. The second half of the season, the defenses look completely different than the first half of the season.
Yeah, and for me, that front four has to feast. You've got to stop the run, and you've got to get to Josh Allen because just as important it is for the offense to get off to a fast start, you can't give Josh Allen 4 or 5 seconds to throw. You can't let him back there and decipher your defense and rip you apart because Josh Allen, everything's on the line. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy, with the way the run game ran last week, if he gets 10-plus carries. He's going to take off. But if you're this Denver offense, you've got to find a way to move the ball. If you're Sean Payton, one of the gripes I've had about him early, the screens, the short
You're not the only one. You're not the only one, Ricky.
Yeah, he gets really, really conservative early. This team is at his best when they just let Bo Nix loose. When he's able to rip the ball across the middle, rip the ball down the field, rip the ball and make those big sideline throws like he did late in the season or in the middle of the season. You gotta let it. You can't cage him up like he's a rookie and protect him. The longer you let Josh Allen hang around.
I was going to say, I don't think this game can be a shootout if the Broncos want to win. Because you look at the Bills and their postseason history with Josh Allen, whether it's against the Chiefs, whether it's against the Ravens, whether against whoever they've played, those are high-scoring games. They want you to score more points than them, and they're going to get their points regardless, however they need to get it. I don't know how the hell Josh Allen does it, genuinely, with the wide receivers he's had his entire time in Buffalo. Stephon Diggs is the only legit wide receiver he's had, and look at the guy now.
My man. Khalil Shakir.
Seriously,
that's my guy.
It just blows my mind.
You'll never hear me say a bad thing about Khalil Shakir.
I know you won't. Give me something nice about Troy Franklin or Marvin.
Troy Franklin has had a good year. I like Troy Franklin is really looking
he's taking a great lead.
He looks like to be taking on that Cortland Sutton role as he's had some big plays. But yeah, the big thing, the longer Denver lets them hang around, the more worried I'm
dangerous.
getting.
It's a dangerous game you're playing with.
Josh Allen needs 1-2 possessions.
And I will say, too, because I know we got to get going in a minute, but I will say, to wrap up this show, Josh has extra motivation now. And Broncos Twitter is fueling that fire.
Yes, they are.
They found a picture of Josh Allen's wife, Haley Steinfeld. Great actress, by the way. She's wonderful. In a Broncos jersey from 2016 when they made the Super Bowl and won it with Peyton Manning. And Broncos Twitter has resurfaced this thing, and I would not be shocked if Josh came across it. Now, I don't know if he's on Twitter necessarily, but whether it's a teammate or someone else in the Buffalo building saying Haley is rooting against you this weekend.
Yeah.
If I was Broncos Twitter, I'd chill out a little bit. Because all you're going to do is piss the guy off, and they're going to be trying tush pushes from the 20-yard line to score.
Also, if you're Denver, one last thing.
Go for it.
Buffalo's run defense has been bad a majority of this year. Might not be a bad idea to also try and run R.J. Harvey a lot.
He hasn't hit that one. He's not had that breakout game.
Hey, Woody Marks last week.
But there you go. It's possible, right?
I mean, he's had a lot of touchdowns. He just hasn't had that big run.
It's a lot of, again,
short passes,
short screen passes,
outside tosses, trying to use his speed, which is his best asset.
Oh my God, Sean Payton and the Broncos.
Mo's going to be
Please
stressed.
pray for my father this weekend.
He's going to be stressed.
Everyone out there, please.
Yeah.
Let's pray for my father. God. All right, we got to finish this thing up. Are we on tomorrow?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
I don't know what the schedule was like now that it's the new year.
We've never been on Friday.
We'll figure out. Maybe we won't be here tomorrow. Maybe we'll be tomorrow. If we are, it gives me an hour to say more prayers out to the world. So we'll do that. If not, enjoy the football this weekend. Like we said, I mean, unreal slate.
It will.
Unreal slate. 4:30. Tune in. Those Denver boys going against the Buffalo Bills. Wonder Boy Josh Allen. Should be pretty awesome. We'll see you next week for another full week of 28-22 Sports Night.